Welcome to the Love of the Star podcast. I'm Bobby Belt, Dallas Cowboys insider for 105 through the Fan in Dallas, joined as always by former Super Bowl winning scout Brian Broaddus. He is now the co-host of the G-Bag Nation, 2 to 7 p.m. Central, Monday through Friday. He is also the pre- and post-game co-host on the Dallas Cowboys radio network. And as always, we're produced by Peyton Russell, who also works with us at 105 through the Peyton, why don't you just pop in here real quick and wave hi and stop being shy? Just wave hi to the people. They want to see you.
What's up, guys?
There he is. There's Peyton. All right. We didn't say you could talk. We just said you could be seen. Seen but not heard. Yep. Okay. You're like a kicker, unless it's Brandon Aubrey. Brian, the Dallas kid, that's Peyton. Peyton does a great job. Yeah, we're trolling him. We do it because we love him. Brian, the Cowboys get their biggest victory of the year, I would say, over the Philadelphia Eagles, 33-13. The only one that I will, before we dive into the specifics of this game, the only reason why I say maybe their biggest game, Brian, is this a bigger victory psychologically, whatever else, than when they had to bounce back and go on the road and beat the Chargers after the 49ers game? Do you think that's a bigger psychological victory this week, or is the Chargers still probably a more impressive victory for their psyche?
I think the victory against the Eagles was the one that's done them the most good. You know, they needed to put that behind them of what happened in Philadelphia. And I just, from a standpoint of what it meant, a home game, a chance to be leading the division at this point, I think this one was the one that I would, the Chargers win was, I thought, a nice one at the time. But last night, I really enjoyed watching them play. I enjoyed watching the tape this morning. I was so curious of how they were going to handle dealing with Hassan Reddick and some others, how they were going to play in the secondary against these wide receivers, how were they going to pressure Jalen Hurts in this game. You know, this one to me had all the makings of everything that I was, as a, you know, watching the team play, that I was hopeful for them, that I'm honestly happy for the Cowboy fans, because I see, and that's the one thing that Twitter X does for you, that you see the everyday fight between these two fan bases.
Yep.
And, you know, and I'll tell you this, if any Philadelphia Eagle fans are listening to our broadcast right now, or just to check it out, I want to thank you for coming through the broadcast position yesterday when we were at the Miller Lite Plaza and coming by and just basically getting in our face and yelling and making it was a great atmosphere.
There were plenty of Eagles fans out there.
There were a lot of Eagle fans, a lot of Kelly Green, but I you know, I've worked on both sides of this. I'm the guy from Dallas that worked for Philly, and I'm the guy, you know, I've been both sides of this. And it is an intense rivalry. It really, really is. What's on the line is intense. The fan base make it even more intense. And so I think it for the Cowboys' perspective, I don't think you could have drawn it up any better for Cowboy fans and for the Cowboy team in the way that they got out of that one last night.
Yeah, and look, this is my big takeaway from this one, Brian, and we can jump into some of the specifics of what we saw.
Something unpopular here?
No. I think that it may sound negative, but I think it's actually a real positive for this football team right now, what I'm about to say. I don't know that Dallas – I don't think Dallas played particularly strong across the board. Philadelphia was able to move the ball somewhat efficiently against you. They come up with big plays, big turnovers. They deserve credit for that, but Philadelphia was able to move the ball pretty efficiently. I thought the quarterback wasn't as sharp as he's been in recent weeks. I think, you know, he hit his stride a little bit, more in the second quarter, but there were some throws early and late where he was late or he was a little bit high. We had the CeeDee Lamb drop. There were times that the offensive line, I think, you know, had their issues, but overall, that's the thing that I think is impressive, or the thing that you can take away from this is they did not put their best game out there, in my opinion, on either side of the ball. I think they were better defensively, because at the end of the day, you can't say, look, they just took one of the top 5 offenses in the NFL and held them to 6 points. You can't complain about that too much. But I think my big takeaway coming out of this is they didn't play their best football, and they still beat one of the top contenders in the NFC by 20 points. And that's something where realistically, if not for maybe a little being flippant with the ball, Dak, and trying to roll out and make something happen, they probably beat him by closer to 30. And so I think that's the impressive thing, is that I think if they give them their A game across the board yesterday, Dallas beats Philadelphia in this game by 40. potentially. I mean, they just were in complete control of this game, even without playing their best game, in my opinion.
I understand what you're saying. I know sitting down and watching the All-22, the thing I came from it was I was super impressed with the way that Dak was able to read, decipher things that Philadelphia was trying to do to him defensively. Mm-hmm. I think this, with Dak, there's things that you look at and you're just saying, God, he's just so natural throwing to his left. Guy's got really good touch. God's, boy, he's that's a gritty play right there. Boy, scramble for yards. Boy, what a tough play that was. I thought that was one of those games last night where Dak really thought the game through. And mm-hmm. I mean it in a way, Bobby, of he read what Philadelphia was trying to do to him coverage wise. When they try and take an edge and drop that edge into coverage, and then he finds Ferguson. Ferguson's playing in line next to Tyron Smith, and he's reading that Nolan Smith is going to be in coverage on his guy because he sees what's happening in the secondary.
Which is not normally what they ask Nolan Smith to do.
No, and that's what I'm saying. He knows that. He's like, okay, well, who's going to cover my guy here? And it looks like this is going to be Nolan Smith. And then all of a sudden Nolan Smith drops, and here's an arc release from the tight end, and Ferguson's now up the seam, and you're going, and Dak just immediately gets him the ball. And it's a huge play. And there were things that in this game where it just he really anticipated what was going to happen to him or what potentially can happen. And if Dak wins the MVP, and I said this on a couple of platforms today, mm-hmm. I said it on the break. So if you listen to the break, thank you very much on DallasCowboys.com. If you listen to our show on 105.3 The Fan to G-Bag Nation, I appreciate you as well. Krusty's Corner 240. I
gotta get that branding in there.
Gotta get that branding in there because I don't need enough things to do. And I do appreciate everybody out there that does listen. But the thing about it is, though, the anticipation that he was able to play with in this football game, and if he wins the MVP award, the play they need to show is the pass that he threw to Ferguson. How somehow in the blitz of Kevin Byard's face, just free rusher coming right at him. Somehow he gets the ball over Byard and gets the ball inside to Ferguson, who's getting mugged by Sidney Brown. He mm-hmm. puts the ball, and all of a sudden you put the hands up, and you're just looking at it and you go, man, what an anticipation of a throw. Here you are facing the blitz right down the gut, and you stand there and make a confident throw that could have just got knocked in the air, could have been tipped, could have been one of those 2022 Dak Prescott interception plays.
Yeah.
But it turned into like a 37-yard gain. It was that. I felt like it was that kind of game for Dak. And yeah, maybe he was amped up. I trust me, I lived with a quarterback in Green Bay that played the first 3 series of the game with Brett Favre, always amped up.
Brett Favre. I thought you were going to say Don Majkowski.
The Magic Man.
Yeah.
2 games with the Magic Man. But yeah, it was, and Mike Holmgren would call Mark Chmura 50X spot, which was just a little curl route, little hook route. Yep. And he'd throw that ball, and then it would get, Brett would settle down. Other than that, he'd throw the rocket ball that would go 7 feet over everybody's head, and he was all, so amped up. And in the pregame, I told Eric Chiafalo that I was worried that maybe that Dak just needed to settle into the game, and don't let the emotions of the atmosphere and the opponent affect the way that he's playing. And I felt like maybe early in the game there was a little of that. But man, that throw he made to CeeDee Lamb on the touchdown, for him to roll to his left, basically do his jump man type of splay, throw the ball, on the run left, going to the left, and put it right on Lamb for a walk-in. that's playing at a high level right now.
Oh,
So
yeah, no,
I get what you're saying, because the thing I'm learning, and soon to be 60 years old tomorrow on Tuesday.
be early birthday. Well, it'll be happy birthday by the time this
By the
this
time I get
airs.
this, thank you, I appreciate that. But I've learned all these years that, man, these quarterbacks, everybody's got a different opinion of what they think the level they're playing at. But, I mean, you've been all on Dak all along about the level
Sure.
he's played at. I give you a lot of credit, because the consistency that you've shown with Dak, it mirrors the consistency that Dak's been playing with. You've been consistent about, well, this is what he does. This is what he does. And it's actually proving correct. I know people give you a lot of S about it, like, oh, you homer, this, that, and the other. But, you've been right about him. But this quarterback, man, you talk about just the ebb and flows of things you have to deal with, but he's playing at a super high level. And I think yesterday was one of those games where it was thinking man Dak that found a way to make some plays, maybe when he wasn't at his best. Maybe he was Greg Maddux, Mike Maddux, pitching coach for the Rangers. Maybe he was Greg Maddux when you don't have your best stuff, but you're finding a way to kind of, use what you have to get the win.
Yeah, I think that he, like you talking about the reads and the decisions he made, I think that was all correct. Like, I think that what you saw yesterday, he was still playing at a high level in terms of, pre and post snap diagnosis and everything else that he was doing. I think that was there. I guess more my thing where I just don't think he was as sharp throwing the football in this one. You're not wrong. He made some big plays. He had the Ferguson one, like you talked about. The Gallup throw was really impressive. Yeah. The one that Lamb probably should have finished down the sideline.
Yeah, that was.
I mean, you have all those, but then there's also, he sailed one a little bit to Ferguson. He kind of sailed one a little bit to Gallup. There was I can't remember who he was trying to hit Lamb.
He was trying to hit Lamb on the inside.
And Morrow.
It looked like Lamb. There was one of them where Lamb looked like he was a soccer goalie and kind of tried to kick his leg out to, the ball.
Yeah, I think mechanically, or just actually just throwing the football yesterday, he just wasn't as sharp. As he's been in recent weeks. But that's a little nitpicky thing. I think overall he played a good game. I just don't know that it's been execution wise to the level. I think everything in terms of what he was seeing and what he was reading was on point yesterday.
His biggest mistake, in my opinion, was he lacked pocket awareness on the sack fumble. And because
that felt like that shouldn't have happened when you watch it.
Zach Martin wasn't in great position, but all Zach Martin could do was push Fletcher Cox to his left. That's all he could do. He really was in bad shape. He just tried to push him and hope that maybe Dak would go behind him, would go behind and step to his right. Because on the play, Dak even mentioned it in the post game. He's like, I gave up 6, could have had 6. And he's absolutely right, because Cooks runs a route and he wins. And they got Tolbert and Lamb are running inside, and now 4 Eagles are running with them, running with 2 guys. So you got one-on-one on the outside with Cooks, and all Prescott has to do is get the ball out there, and it's a touchdown. But he kind of drifts in the pocket. He drifts, and then he drifts into a sack. And as he's trying to load up the throw, that's when Fletcher Cox knocks the ball out of his hands.
Yep.
As he's loading up. And, him moving to his left and throwing all the way back to the right, I've only seen one guy do that really, really well for a long distance, and that was Favre in the Detroit playoff game one time that we won at the Silverdome. But it would have, that was the one time I thought, Dak just really not great pocket awareness on that particular play. He really didn't help. He didn't help Martin out at all. But that's going to happen in games.
Yeah, look, the fact that, again, we're talking about, it didn't look quite as good as it has in recent weeks, and yet we're still talking about 271 yards and 2 touchdowns and no interceptions. That just speaks to the level that he's been playing at.
He's having these multiple games now, 7 games with 2 plus touchdowns, and we're not talking about turning over. The fumble was unfortunate. That really was an unfortunate play, in my opinion. That gave Philadelphia hope, and then you had to kind of, let's ratchet this thing back together here and figure out a way to close this game out.
You are listening to the Love of the Star podcast, the Love of the Stars and Odyssey podcast. You can find it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Brian. So we take a look, pretty heavily there at the quarterback himself.
Yeah.
There were a lot of other things to take away from this football game. Stephon Gilmore, I thought, had a really impressive game in this one. And he told reporters afterwards that A.J. Brown called him old in the first quarter. And he was like, all right, well, I'm locked in here. I'm ready to play now. And so that kind of triggered him a little bit. He was playing with a lot more emotion than I'm used to seeing him play with out there. He was very intense. But again, you had another good performance from Jake Ferguson. I thought Tyler Smith, even though the offensive line struggled, I thought Tyler Smith did some really nice things in pass protection in this game. And in general, the offensive line, while it wasn't consistent, there were times where it was really good and it came together in really good spots. I thought Pollard had a solid game overall. But the big thing here, and this is something that you have talked about consistently this season, is what you've gotten out of the safeties, which hasn't always been the best.
Yes.
But the safety group came to play in this game.
They sure did. And I think you always have to be fair about this because I have, as you mentioned, Bobby, various platforms. I've been critical of what's happened at the safety play. I've been very critical of Malik Hooker. Been critical of Curse and Wilson. And I felt like that yesterday, even going into the game, the various platforms I always say, I felt like that they needed to have a really good game at safety. All of them. They needed, if Dallas was going to win and Dallas was going to be able to control the Philadelphia passing game, they were going to have to be good at safety. They were going to have to be able to help. They were going to have to be able to rally. They were going to have to be able to tackle. I mean, throw in there now the ability to create turnovers, punching the ball loose, the tackling that stripped the ball. Those are all things you needed in that football game. And they got it. And congratulations to those guys for playing at a very, very high level. The fact that Gilmore was able to travel, Bland was comfortable wherever he had to play in that game. They didn't target him. They went after Gilmore. They felt like that they could carry Gilmore on some routes and he was going to have some problems. They felt like they could take him down the field and they felt like he was going to have some problems. He really, really did. Now, Brown played a good game. Brown made some plays, but it wasn't like that Brown killed them in this game. They were able to win any time that the Eagles had made a big play, whether it was the run by Hurts, knocked the ball out, fumble, turnover. The pass inside the slant to Brown, get the ball out there. Then the play to Smith, later in the game where he breaks two tackles and then ball's knocked out by Bell. That's what you got to have. If you're going to give up plays, you got to find a way to get the ball back, knock the ball loose, do something. And Dallas did a really, really nice job of that. I tip my hat to them. The secondary, the way they played overall, that's a tough matchup, especially after what they dealt with the previous outing against Seattle. It is covering Smith and Brown and having to deal with that tight end. I mean, that's an all day job. That is an all day job, and the Cowboys were able to, in the 50 some odd plays that they ran, they did a really nice job of playing on that back end.
When you look at, there was a lot of talk about, Shaq Leonard and, Dallas's potential interest in him. He ultimately chooses the Eagles, as we know, and he was in uniform last night playing. But it was on display for you, I think, the difference in the quality of the linebackers, which the Cowboys have had their issues at linebacker this year, and they've been a little bit thin there. But, man, I thought that this performance in primetime, stepping up against a team like the Eagles, I thought that Marquise Bell played a really good game, and I thought that Damone Clark played a pretty solid game.
Yeah, it sure did. They needed once again, they needed both of those guys. And, and it had to be a little bit of a tough week or last couple of weeks, tough weeks for these linebackers. I know, Bobby, you go into the locker room and visit with the players after the game. I guarantee you that Bell and Clark knew that the Cowboys were pursuing Shaq Leonard, and that is the business side of sports. That is hey, I've got to put my head down and I got to go do my job. And you know what? If they keep playing me out here, I got to keep going. And I think that's what the two linebackers did for the Cowboys yesterday. They went out there, they put their head down and played at a really, really high level. I thought it was one of the better games that Clark has had, with how active he was, the tackles that he was able to make, the way he was able to play in positioning. I mean, it was really a nice day for those linebackers.
We were talking about this a little bit before the show, and what stands out to me again, I thought that Dallas played, well. It wasn't always consistent. You'd like to see the offense put the ball in the end zone in the second half. They obviously had their struggles with that. But one of the big takeaways I had from this game right now is that I think we have reached a definite point of saying Dallas is above Philadelphia. Dallas is a better football team right now than Philadelphia, because what we've seen on tape and in this game
for 8 quarters, they've probably won 6 of them, 7 of the quarters.
Yeah,
if they played 8 quarters, Dallas has probably won 6 or 7 of those 8 quarters.
Yeah, and when you watch this Philly team, when you watch them on tape, and I think what was on display again last night, Brian, is that this Philadelphia defense is just not good. They have a bad defense right now.
Yeah, I think, Bobby, the biggest problem that Philadelphia has is, you can have some success running the football on them. Dallas popped some runs. Dallas had some penalties that were called, the clipping penalty. There were some penalties that were just, holding. Yeah, hey, John Hussey, the crew, it really happened both ways. I mean, both teams could have a legitimate gripe, and that's where
I think Dallas. In fact, I think Dallas may have benefited a little bit more from some of the
and
calls.
Going to the game, we even talked about that John Hussey's crew has called more penalties on the road team than they did the home team. So it played really into maybe a little bit in Dallas' advantage that way. But the one thing that I learned last night watching that game and then watching it this morning is that if you can control Philly's pass rush, you can certainly move the ball on them. Certainly move the ball on them. And I'll tell you what, I give this coaching staff, Mike McCarthy and the coaching staff on the offensive side of the ball, a lot of credit for this reason. They knew that Terrence Steele had problems the first time this game was played in Philadelphia. They knew that Hassan Reddick, Brandon Graham, Sweat, those guys against him, they were causing problems in that game for him. And in this game, they didn't just completely leave him out there by himself. They said, listen, we're going to chip, which they were able to do with Pollard. And by the way, the sack, I need to ask Bobby, if you know somebody that might know this, it might help me. I can ask somebody, but if you would. The sack that Steele gave up where he just got run by Reddick, Pollard is on the outside, is kind of set there. And the way that Steele set in his pass set, and just with a right hand punch, I wonder if Pollard was supposed to help him. Because the next play, Pollard did help him, and they hit Lamb on a 10-yard pass.
Yeah.
But I just wonder if this was one of those times where Steele was expecting Pollard to help, so he really didn't set really with any width. He just kind of set off the line and then checked with his hand, thinking that Pollard was going to be next to him and they were going to be able to secure Reddick. But Reddick just took a straight run, actually went low on Dak. God, that's a scary moment right there.
That was terrifying.
Very, very scary moment there. But I wonder if Steele was expecting Pollard to give him some help there, and he didn't. Somebody will know, and maybe I need to ask to figure that out. But anyway, other than that, it was chip. It was help with Pollard, chip with Ferguson, who did a great job of, every time he went out, just two-hand shove. He helped. Every time he could help, he helped. He took a shot at Reddick every time he could do it. And then they also did it with what we talked about last week, the width, putting a tight end to that side and making Reddick have to rush a little bit wider. So, again, tip of the cap to Mike McCarthy, to the offensive line coach, and the scheme itself for what they were able to do. Mike Solari, those guys, whatever they were able to do to not allow Hassan Reddick to take this game over, because by blocking that front, they were able to make some plays. And you mentioned it, maybe Dak wasn't perfect, but man, they still made a lot of big plays.
Yeah, and I think that's ultimately, what you walk away from it saying, regardless of any warts or anything else, you just say that at the end of the day, they got the job done, and that's an important thing. I was interested in one thing, Brian, and I don't know if you felt this way at all. Did you get the sense that it was a real coaching point from the Cowboys on defense this week, because I felt like it was definitely on display more than it was in the game in Philadelphia. It felt like on defense, there was an emphasis on, if Jalen Hurts is going to act like a runner, you guys are going to treat him like a runner and make him make him feel it if he's going to, get outside the pocket. Because it felt like they were hitting hard and not nothing cheap. I wouldn't say headhunting.
I say
nothing cheap.
Headhunting in a way of like, if he's going to run, we're going to hit him. Yeah.
Nothing cheap, but if he wants to feel the game, make sure he feels the game. Let's make sure that all legal stuff, but just like, hey, let's hit him with some force. Let's make him think twice about wanting to run on us a little bit. And that felt like a real point of emphasis. And guys looked like they were saying, all right, if I'm going to make a tackle here, I'm going to make sure this is a physical tackle. I'm not going to, be back on my heels a little bit and worried about his speed or his cutback ability. I'm going to make sure that we make sure that we bring him to the ground, and we bring him to the ground physically.
Yeah, there's a little Al Davis there. You almost gave it the hit the quarterback and hit him hard. He must go to the ground. We will be superior. We are the Raiders.
Exactly.
That's. I kind of feel like I like what you were saying there. I think the Cowboys on defense tried to make it a physical game to begin with. I think they really wanted to make sure, some of the hits. I know that they had the drop in the middle of the field with Smith. It was a big collision in the middle of the field. There was an incomplete pass. They got after the Eagles pretty well, but if Hurts was going to run, you're right. They were going to go after him, but man, they had a couple of really nice designs, to move a linebacker with motion and all of a sudden run that quarterback draw the way that they were. So, they hit on a couple of plays, but I felt like just overall though, Dallas's defense was, they were up to the task in that game. They really, really would. I think their offense really helped them though in this way. Offense for holding the ball. I mean, Philadelphia has had to deal with a lot of defensive snaps. When you look at the Buffalo game, you look at the San Francisco game, and then what does Dallas do in the first half? I mean, they punished them with those drives, 10-play, 13-play drives. That I think that also took a lot out of the Eagles as well defensively.
Now, the other aspect of this that I think is interesting, we can't walk away from before we go to the mailbag here, Brian, and this is as somebody who you cut your teeth in NFL Europe, okay? And this is something I'm going to ask Jerry Jones about this tomorrow morning on Sean and RJ. Not about you working in NFL Europe, Brian. But last year, you got a big boost going and getting Kevontae Turpin from the USFL. Brandon Aubrey now has come off to, he has gotten off to just an incredible start for them. As their kicker, another guy that they took out of the USFL. When you see two examples of that and two real big-time contributors for this team, meaningful contributors to this team, does that make an effective case to the Cowboys, maybe to Jerry, to speak to the NFL and to the NFL in general, saying, hey, we really could stand to use a developmental league, and we could stand to have a place to develop these talents, like, whether it be either cultivating guys who are not on rosters right now, or just go give a place for Trey Lance to play. Go give a place for Trey Lance to get some reps in and develop, because the Cowboys have hit on this now twice with spring league guys.
Yeah, Bobby, and I think, and thank you for remembering, I was part of NFL Europe the original year in 1990. And so, I did that for 2 years until I went to work for the Packers. Matter of fact, I went to work for the Packers on tomorrow. My birthday would be December 12th of 1991. That was my first day.
32 years ago.
32 years ago was my first day in the National Football League. So, but yeah, it was, I got to be a part of NFL Europe, and I've seen it on both sides. Being a part of it, I was super excited about it. I was always felt like, please, if we could get these guys, if we can work with these guys, if we can develop these guys, if teams would give us this guy. But we found out that teams just wanted their players working out in their facilities. They wanted to be around their players. They wanted to be able to have mini camps. They wanted to be able to do all this stuff. And what we also found is that when we got these players with this a 10-game schedule, we'd send these players back to their teams, and then they would go right into training camp, and it was just so hard for these guys. Yeah, they got the experience. I think if there's a way to do it with the quarterbacks, I think you can make it work.
I'll adjust. I'll adjust then. Let's say
instead of developmental league for the quarterbacks, I agree with you. I just think that the other players, it's so hard for them to play a 10-game schedule, go through all that, and then try and get and be ready for an NFL season that's now 17 games.
Then let's say, forgetting guys that are on active rosters, do you think it's a good argument for a pathway program, at least, of guys who like, hey, you got a mini camp invite, we didn't end up like even having you on our 90-man roster or whatever else, but like, let's just go, here's a pathway, we've got a partnership here with the USFL, whatever else, this is somewhere where you can kind of foster these talents a little bit.
Well, I think that everybody's super selfish when it comes to their players, and they don't want to, we put Chad Hutchinson into the World League and hope that he, would get work, get better, and he didn't. So, but there's some teams like, if for example, one of the best examples is a guy like Kurt Warner. He was a quarterback in the World League, and and so some of these guys play, and some of these guys play at a high level and get to the NFL and do great things. But the wear and tear on these players is just so hard. And Bobby, you'll remember this guy. I think you will. Dwayne Hawthorne, that was a little cornerback. So we sent Dwayne Hawthorne to World League to get work. He played great. He played great for them and gave everything he had. And, watching him every week, he played great. When he got to us, he was dead. He couldn't run anymore. He was just all the running that he had to do. Just really, he got experience in playing and all that. But he's a small guy, and it hurt him. It hurt him where when he came to us, he's like, man, I can't run anymore. I'm too tired to run. And it might have happened a little bit too to Turpin.
End of last year for sure.
Yeah, now you're seeing the best version of Turpin after getting a year off. So I wish they would develop a league where guys would get opportunities and everybody could benefit. But I think that the NFL is. I think they just want their players to be. I think they want their players to stay at home, work out, have mini camps and all that stuff. I don't think they're really interested in doing anything else with them.
You are listening to the Love the Star podcast. The Love the Star is an Odyssey podcast. You can find it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Brian, it is now time for our Dean Julia Love of the Star mailbag. It's where we turn things over to our dear, sweet listeners here. By the way, happy
birthday to Dean Julia. He celebrates the same birthday as me.
Look at that. Happy birthday, Dean Julia.
Yes, happy birthday, sir.
First question here from one of our other loyal listeners, Stacy. She says, if you're the Cowboys, do you try to bring Cooks and Gilmore back next year? Two guys who they used, day 3 picks on, acquired, and have been good contributors here. Obviously, Cooks took a little while to get going, and there have been times where we feel like, okay, is Gilmore quite the same player? But Gilmore obviously played big time for you yesterday. Cooks has had a couple of big games for them now. Do you think that they would look at them as guys that they could retain, or do you think that these are options right now, those two, who you'd say, hey, this is probably just, you're going to run out the clock here, be done with this, and then you're likely to move on?
Kind of feel like both are playing at a pretty darn high level right now. If you look at the way they've lined up, the way they played, you mentioned Cooks. I think he's become a really nice complementary piece. I think the combination routes, I say that quite a bit about that he runs with the others. His ability to clear, the ability to make big plays, the ability to get down the field. The play made before half was a really, really nice route that he ran to get open. He could separate still. I think he feels very comfortable here. He's going to do his job. He's going to block when he's asked to. Sure, absolutely. I don't see it's him blocking anybody's path to being on the field. I just, now, will the Cowboys look at the situation, though, and think, well, we can maybe go a little bit cheaper at receiver, but thinking about what they could do with Ferguson and Lamb and Tolbert, and then go from there and add a couple more guys. But if it was me, I would absolutely bring both those guys back. And again, I'm saying that as a guy who watches the tape and seeing a high level play, but that the salary cap guys might not agree with my assessment on that one.
If you can only keep one of them, are you bringing back Gilmore or Cooks?
Wow. I'm probably bringing back Gilmore.
Interesting. I think I'm bringing back Cooks because at least even with getting Cooks going, it took a little while, but I felt like Cooks has been the same guy all year. Like I think he's been playing at a good level. and I think he's still got more left in the tank. It's just obviously a question of when you've got the guy who's a smaller guy who wins on speed, like when that goes, it tends to go fast. But I just feel like maybe there's a little bit more time left on a guy like Cooks than Gilmore.
Yeah, but okay, how about this situation though? We've seen what's happened to these Cowboy players coming off injury the following year.
Yep.
Is Diggs going to be, if you told me that Diggs is going to be 100%, and he's not going to be 100%, but those trainers don't put hurt guys out there. But he will be good. But do you worry about him, kind of what we've seen with Pollard, kind of what we've seen with Steele, kind of what we've seen with all these guys that have been hurt in the past and come back, and it's taken them a long time to kind of get going?
Sure.
To me, I think I could get by at the receiver part of it. I don't know if I could get by at the corner part. Maybe you draft, but to me, it's nice. I don't think I'm going to have Jordan Lewis next year, but it'd be nice to have Diggs, Gilmore, and Bland, who I was going to start with, and maybe supplement around that. See if some of these other guys, McQuamu and some others, can maybe. I mean, I think the clock is ticking on those guys as well. Unfortunate that that you missed on Boss Man Fat when that would have been that was a second round pick.
Yeah.
So maybe it would have been a situation where if he would have hit, you could have maybe thought about this a little bit better. But I'm going to try and protect myself until I fully know that Diggs is back to playing the level that he was before he got injured.
Next question here from Ray. How will they fill the void of Henkins being out? Jonathan Henkins obviously is dealing with an ankle sprain. Now, he left the locker room yesterday when he was leaving. He didn't have a boot on or anything. He looked like he was moving okay, but I know you were hearing that you might be looking at being without him for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Is the easy answer here just Carl Davis in the practice squad?
I think it's Carl Davis right now. That's a veteran player. When you look at the size with Carl Davis, he kind of fits that role of that big body guy. They're going to need something. They're going to need somebody inside like that, though. They really, really, really are. So, I'm kind of thinking that that's the route. I know people were talking about Ndamukong Suh and stuff like that, but Davis seems to be the guy that I feel like it's going to be the fit there.
Yeah, I think that's the direction to go. They brought him in for a reason, and not for this specific reason, but they brought him in to have him here in the room, and they've had him on the practice squad for several weeks now. It seems like something that would be an easy fit there.
I will tell you this real quick though. I had somebody in the front office tell me about the couple of weeks we'll see with Henkins. They don't think it's. They think it's serious, but not to the point of like, oh, geez, he's going to miss. They were talking about likely a couple of games. Maybe this guy toughs it out. Maybe, he gets back. We've seen some guys.
He's been good for them this year.
He has. He absolutely. So, just take it for somebody telling me, hey, likely a couple of games. That's kind of where we're at right now.
Ryan, here's a little bit of a broad question. Maybe your answer is Jonathan Henkins here. This is a question from Justin. Who has been an unsung hero for the Cowboys this season?
An unsung hero. I think there's no way in hell that you told me that Bell was going to play a significant role that he's played. Am I right about that?
Yeah. No.
Bell in camp, you're kind of thinking like, we play that fun game before we go to training camp in July. Okay, let's cut the 53-man roster without ever seeing anybody practice.
Yep.
I guarantee you're putting Bell on the waiver list every single time.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you don't know. You just don't know. And so I think they've asked him to do so much. I think, to be honest with you, I think Turpin's been a little bit of an unsung hero too, because of he's now part of the normal rotation on, when they run 11 personnel, he's out there playing. Like they have confidence that he's going to go out there and make a play for him, whether a jet sweep, a catch, something, he's going to do something. I think him returning that ball right off the first kickoff return, I think that was a tone setter. 10 yards deep, he's like, heck, I'm going to bring this thing back. I'm going to put a 49-yard return on you right here. He got it out to the 25, which was actually a 35-yard return if you look at it. Mm-hmm. But, man, I mean, I think him and Bell and those guys have done. Fowler's another one. Every time Fowler plays, like something kind of good happens.
He's a splash play guy. Yeah,
he's a very splash play guy. And I see him on tape, and I'm like, oh, let's watch him. Oh wow, that's kind of a nice move right there. Oh, he made So, but I think Bell would be my unsung. Did I say it right?
Unsung hero. You got it. Yeah. You got it there, Brian. Now, honestly, the answer you could probably give every year is probably DeMarcus Lawrence. And that's just because there's still so many critics for DeMarcus Lawrence. I'll say this. I think that there was I know that people see that he plays well. I don't know that it's registered completely with everybody just how consistently good Oso Odighizuwa has been this year.
That's another one.
That guy's been incredible for them. I think he's made himself some money with a contract extension this upcoming offseason.
There's no question. He is. When you start to talk about that under tackle, the 3 technique, that play he made in the game yesterday or last night, the
big tackle for loss,
capsule, 4 yards, a 4-yard tackle. What did he do? He beat the guard and then boom, he's up the field, he's tackled, and that's what he does. He's great when you can run him with games, the twists and stuff. He knows how to be the post. He knows how to be the looper. He tackles well. He gets into the pocket. He's disruptive. Tackle for loss. Yeah, a lot of good things for him.
That does it for us here today on the Love of the Star podcast. Again, tomorrow, or when you're listening to this today, it is Brian Broaddus' birthday, so be sure
60
to
years old.
Shower him. Yeah, just shower him with love and adoration on Twitter at Brian Broaddus. That's Bryan, and then Broaddus is Broaddus. If you're watching us on the video, you can see right there. That's what his handle is. So go over there, tell him how much you appreciate him, and make sure to remind him to be nice to our quarterback. Our collective quarterback, my guy here, which he's been great to this year.
No, I tell you what, Bobby, you've done a great job of handling that quarterback. I'll let you keep doing that. So
I was dug in, Brian. I reached the point where
it's paying off, man. It's paying off for sure.
Kept having to dig, and ultimately worked out. For Brian Broaddus, I'm Bobby Belt, and somewhere back there is Peyton Russell. We will talk to you guys again next time. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest updates. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.